Hi guys, welcome back to LegalEdge 3 years LLB YouTube channel. All attending the session, how's the Josh? We're done with July and I think 2026 has passed by in a jiffy. It kind of feels like it was just yesterday that we started off with 2026. Couple of days into August too, and you know, we'll not even realize because the second half of the year is generally very heavy on festivals. So the entire nation shifts, the mood shifts to a very festive mode. We'll just start off with Rakhi, then Janmashtami, Ganesh Chaturthi, Navratri, Dussehra, Diwali, New Year, and you won't even realize that we'll start off with 2027. And now, all my dear students preparing for NLSAT 2027, dreaming, manifesting to be celebrating all festivals next year at NLS. Couple of things. We're training a lot of students, we've trained a lot of students, and there are traps, silent traps that you don't even realize but are killing your chances of getting into one of the most coveted premier law schools of the country. And all you have to do, so we'll just spend, say, like roughly about 8-10 minutes in consciously taking note of those errors, spend a couple of seconds as to how to fix them, and just be extremely mindful of them throughout your preparatory journey. One very important thing, so all those who've not yet started to actively, consciously invest time in your NLSAT preparation, believe me, January से हर बच्चा पढ़ेगा, and I keep telling this to all my students because you will feel the pressure that the exam in, say, like in 3 months, 4 months. If you're able to maintain consistency in these months, which is like August, September, October, November, December, you will have an unfair advantage because everyone will put in the effort from January. It's very difficult to maintain consistency in these months. That's because you do not really feel the pressure. You do not allow yourself to feel the pressure. You think that there's so much time. Exam next year. Hai. But you didn't even realize, and we're done with 7 months. We're done with July, August, and this time will also fly by. So make it a point that you are extremely consistent throughout this time, and so that you already have an edge opposed to students who will start preparing from January onwards. On that note, let's start. Let's just quickly spend like a couple of seconds in familiarizing ourselves, and for those who already know, a quick recap. So once you understand the structure well, you can then be, say, like more mindful of not to make certain mistakes. So NLSAT part A, part B has an objective component, has a subjective component. Objective is 75 marks, subjective is 75 marks. Objective primarily English, critical reasoning, GK. You have 8 dense passages and then the questions follow. So after every passage, the questions is a mix of questions. The passage is followed by a mix of questions. +1 for correct and 0.25 negative, not just for incorrect, but for unattempted questions too. One hack that I tell my students for part B is look at part B also as, say, like two sections. One is case study, another is analytical essay. And why? Because case studies, since every case study is 12 marks each, you're technically fighting for 60 marks as opposed to 15 marks for your essay. So look at part B also as two distinct sections within it. Case studies, analytical essays, both demand a different approach as well. And you have 150 minutes for the paper. And the biggest challenge and where half your competition gets eliminated is because people could not complete their could not complete their paper in time. Now, after that, let's quickly move forward. First and foremost, mistake, since a lot of you have I've had you a little bit of stint with CLAT and I've had some exposure. And if you're preparing with the same mindset, that is one of the primary mistakes that you're making. So while you can leverage a lot of your learnings that you had while preparing for CLAT, understand the difficulty level for NLSAT significantly varies. The passages are much dense, the vocabulary, the LOD is much higher. Plus, the paper is extremely reading intensive. It tests your reading stamina. Unlike CLAT, wherein reading is, of course, an essential part of it, but then you also have QT, you also have analytical reasoning. So the reading stamina required for NLSAT is much, much higher. Plus, the paper pattern itself demands a different approach. Part A is objective and part B is subjective. So while do use a lot of your learnings that you had while preparing for a competitive examination, maybe say like a year ago, 2 years ago, leverage those learnings of reading regularly, studying regularly. However, different mindset needed, the LOD is different, the skill set. One thing that I tell my students that NLSAT expects you to build skills, reading, articulation, etc. Work with the similar mindset and improve. And meanwhile, guys, any questions, please drop it in the chat box. I will be very happy to take them up. Hi, Satakshi. Hello. And this is Priya. Can you prepare the GK section? You have to prepare the GK section. I think one of the mistakes, I'll come to it, as to how a lot of you might be making this mistake of randomly studying GK and you don't even realize. You might feel that, oh, I'm preparing the best that I can. मैं तो सब पढ़ रहा हूँ. मैं तो 8-8 घंटे पढ़ रहा हूँ. Still, you might not see the results. So we'll come to that as well and continue to drop questions, guys. It's always interesting to have a interactive session. Okay. Second mistakes that I see a lot of my students making, I regularly interact with a lot of them. And again, another common mistake, which is attempting your part A and part B separately. I see a lot of you कि अच्छा आज part A करके देख लेते हैं, how much time we are taking, then we'll separately sit and solve part B. Now you're preparing for an examination where time management is one of the most crucial skills. If you'll not attempt part A and part B together, you will never have a fair assessment of how much time does it take. Are you really able to complete your paper within the stipulated time limit? In fact, you will not even have 150 minutes. That's also a misconception. You will roughly have 135 to 140 minutes. 5 to 7 minutes will go in filling the bubbles in your OMR. Couple of minutes in just familiarizing yourself with your test center, invigilator, attendance sheet, etc. So you don't even have 150 minutes. You will roughly have 135 to 140 minutes. And until unless you attempt part A and part B together, you will never really have a fair assessment of how much time does it take to complete the paper. If you'll continue to attempt both these sections separately, because since you have the discretion that you can allocate whatever time that you want to part A and part B, you will never reach a fair assessment until unless you attempt both these sections together. Something that we do for our students, that we make it a point that we condition you to complete your part A 65 minutes tops. That is why after 65 minutes you can't attempt your part A. That's where the time limit ends. So please practice both the parts together, and that's how you'll reach a fair assessment of how much time does it take. Please explain the case studies part in detail. Yes, so this is Harshav. I will come to it. Now, quickly, very important. Stop over relying on your part B. If you've still not learned this or have made peace with it, I think must have happened with you in school and college. You do not really get full marks in a subjective paper. So your marks will saturate after a point in time. And then every incremental effort will take a lot of every little increase will demand a lot of time, a lot of effort, significant changes. After a point, you'll somewhere get stuck here. 50, you'll maximum be able to say like push somewhere from 50 to 55. Plus, since it's a subjective component, you never really can be certain of how much would you score. You might just write like the best possible answer, yet your marks will not be commensurate or proportionate to your effort. On the contrary, your part is objective. So you'll either get a mark or you'll not get a mark. Always try and score like a 60 plus in your part A. So when you score a 60 and you can get a 40, even if you're scoring a 40, you still score 100, which is a very good score and a very safe score for you to make it to NLS. So see, part B is one of the deciding metrics for whether or not you get selected or whether you get the offer from NLS or not. Part A is more qualifying in nature since the copies get selected in the ratio 1:5. So of course you have to score within a certain, you have to touch that threshold, score within a certain bracket, and then part B becomes distinguishing. But then a lot about strategy would be to optimize here in part A. And then, if at all, since it's a subjective one and you still need a lot more effort here, that's how you can balance your part A and part B. Sounds good, guys? Yes, no, maybe? Okay. Before we move forward, something very interesting that we're doing for you guys, which is say like NLSAT Super Week starts off. It's open for all, free for all. It's like from 10 to 16, we'll have extensive sessions. And why beginner to pro is that regardless of wherever you are in your preparatory journey, the sessions are going to be extremely helpful. We've divided the session in three stages. First we'll familiarize ourselves with a lot of previous year papers, like an extensive past 4 years of analysis. We'll do theory and then we'll do practice. We have Q&A sessions with toppers, so ask them directly, like how to make notes, how much time did they spend reading the newspaper, how did their day look like? How did they manage it alongside college? And like one question, kitne ghante pade? So were they studying 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours? So power packed week with extremely insightful and helpful sessions. So you'll find the registration link in the description. Do register and I look forward to seeing you all in the session. We'll also have sessions around how to boost your scores in part B and those recurring mistakes, etc. So for all super serious aspirants, Super Week and LSAT 2027 Super Week for you. Okay, quickly coming to the fourth mistake, getting overconfident with English and CR. And this will mostly happen with students who come from relatively backgrounds wherein they've had certain exposure to language, they have decent command over English, and they're comfortable with that language in first place. Now understand, we're talking about 8 passages, like minimum of 8 passages, diverse genres, English, philosophy, international affairs, interesting science, technology, interesting. And the LOD will, of course, range from easy to difficult. And if you'll not expose yourself to to practicing diverse set of RCs, if you if you're seeing something for the first time on the day of the examination, believe me, it'll take you time to just try and gauge what the RC is trying to say. You will have to read the same thing twice, thrice. So do not get overconfident with your English and CR. Practice as much as possible. Do a lot of timed practice. Do a lot of practice basis those recurring question types. So with CR, you will see that strengthening and weakening, assumptions, inferences are NLSAT favorites. You'll see main idea, author's argument, most likely to agree with, disagree with. So there are like certain high yielding topics, practice a lot of those, but then at the same time, for holistic practice, go beyond them as well. For example, NLSAT 2022, there were vocab questions. 23, 24, 25, there were no per se vocab questions. 2026, there were 3 vocab questions. So English and CR demand a lot of conceptual clarity. You might just get an answer correct, tukka tha, fluke. You have to be certain that you've gotten the concepts correct. And that is why analyze your correct answers too and assess that was it a concept gap, was it a knowledge gap, or you were just like absolutely silly and you had imported some extra knowledge and you did not stick to what the author has asked. Okay, quickly moving forward, studying GK the wrong way, extremely important. A lot of you, so see, regularly scrolling will help build recall, but you have to be certain that you're picking up what's relevant. So GK is not as unpredictable as you think it is. You will see a pattern if you'll analyze the last year papers of NLS. Books and author is an all-time favorite. Plus, NLSAT picks up socio-political issues, pop culture themes, which relatively are framing discussions. Are shaping the mainstream discussions. For those of you who have looked at NLS papers, 2025, there was a passage in the movie, much acclaimed, appreciated movie, Mrs. Then, creator of Ghibli Studio. I think a lot of you attending the session are guilty of giving that trend an attempt. So you have to be just very generally aware. One keyword that I use is that be generally aware. Keep an eye on what's happening, the kind of discussions which are taking place, the broader issues, the policy themes. Because your GK is, of course, super important for part A, but at the same time, extremely important for your part B, and more so specifically for your analytical essays as well. So focus on policy, focus on themes, and connect dots. So anything which is happening in the current realm, you'll find that even if there's a static question in your NLSAT, so by default, again, guys, focus on memorizing facts as well, because NLSAT does test memory-based GK. You will not be able to deduce the answers from the passage. So you will have to focus on remembering stuff as well. Learn to connect dots. So while in NLSAT 2026, there was a question on for which of the following titles Kiran Desai has won Man Booker Prize. Now she was shortlisted in the year. So instead of asking for which book she has been shortlisted, you were asked that in which year, in so and so year, which is the title that she had first won the award for. So that is how you connect your current and static dots. The lot of the conflict with Iran, USA, etc. So then there were questions on dictators and similar events in the history. So it's not that your static is also completely out of the box. The links could be drawn and traced to anything which is happening in current. You just have to be mindful. And there would always be questions as far as you're concerned about being generally aware, like which among the following YouTube channels has the highest subscriber? Does anyone know the answer? I'm certain you would. Drop it in the chat box, guys. Okay, quickly moving forward. Skipping practice on unruled sheets. Now, if you'll actually look at the NLSAT question booklet, you would see that after each case study, you have space left. Now, if you do not practice an unruled sheet, you will never really build the discipline of word count, spacing, your sentences would be crooked, your handwriting wouldn't improve, and presentation matters. Think it from a perspective of an evaluator. If I'm like scanning, evaluating multiple copies on the same thing, pretty much students have written the same thing, there's absolutely not much distinguishing factor. So my mind will automatically start to just scan. And now, what becomes extremely important in instances like these is my presentation, is my content legible? Of course, the quality of your arguments, but also, like, one little pro tip here, focus on a lot of your introduction, more your case studies, your analytical essays. And so, while in your case studies, it would be more like the first couple of lines after issue, how is it that you're framing your argument? Your analytical essay, it would be introduction. So, once as an evaluator, when I have like so many copies, if you're not offering anything different, I will just scan and I'll skip. So it has to be something that captures my attention and actually incentivizes me to read. And I'm certain must have happened with a lot of you that if you're reading something extremely recurring in nature, your mind just shuts down and it is not registering a lot of information. So focus a lot here, focus on unruled sheets, focused on that paragraph spacing, sentence structure, and word count. No, Harshil, you're given this that blank space and you are to write. That is per se, they do not really highlight it in the instructions that whether you can draw straight lines or not, but that is not practically viable as well. So focus on unruled sheets. While we do our answer writing, live answer writing classes, I make it a point that my students are writing it on unruled sheets, and that's how you practice and that's how you learn. Plus, logistically also not viable. Imagine the amount of time that will be consumed in doing so in a paper which is already very challenging to complete within the time limit. Okay, quickly, never getting your answers evaluated. If you're just randomly writing, you're not receiving feedback, You're not getting objection or actionable feedback. You're not technically improving. The idea is not just to write a lot of answers, but to improve with every single answer. And for someone you for someone to actually see the blind spots, to show you the blind spots that you're essentially missing. Your mentors, the policy that we follow is that our students submit answers, and to make it a point, so we have NLSAT toppers, we have senior mentors evaluating your copies. We try and send out as detailed voice notes, annotate your copies to tell you, instead of just saying something vague like this argument can be improved, how. So, how? Questions like how, why, etc. So, please get your answers evaluated. Not building reading stamina. It's a task. And more so specifically with the generation, doom scrolling, your attention span has taken such a hit that you cannot sit at one place and read. So please focus on building for reading, sorry, focused reading 150 minutes. Otherwise, you'll zone out after, say, like the fourth or the fifth passage. You'll have to reread the same thing again and again. Fatigue will creep in. You will not be able to complete that paper. Exam like conditions, very important. See, on the day of the examination, peer pressure, silly mistakes, that pressure, whether you'll make it or not, you might end up marking, filling the wrong bubble, not read the question properly, you'll feel distracted. So LegalEdge will soon be coming up with a lot of all India open mocks to give you an exact exam like environment. Go listen to all interviews. You'd see that if you're scoring, say, like in a certain range in an online ecosystem, your scores will by default decrease in an offline ecosystem, because A, you have to read something offline. So your reading stamina varies while you're reading online, offline, filling that OMR sheet for the first time, writing. So it's a very different experience. Plus, your test center might not be, say, all calm with everything in place. The AC is in full blast. There's absolute silence, calmness. So the conditions might not always be in your favor. So even if you're put in a situation where, like, a lot of people talking, there's chaos, you should still be able to focus. Skipping exam like practice. Last, not analyzing your mocks. Something that I tell my students, guys, that preparation half done, preparation unassessed is preparation half done. It will always be 20% of taking the mock and 80% of actually analyzing the mock. Why this is important? Otherwise, you will never know where to improve. And on the day of the examination, your weak area has to be at least 70% of what your good area is. What if on the day of the examination, what you feel is a good area ends up betraying you? You feel English is your strong area, you get most, it's super difficult, and that's where you get most of your questions wrong. Same with CR, same with GK, same with part B. You have practice extensively, yet the case studies were so complicated, the analytical essays were, the topics were such alien that you could not perform. So it has to be a balance of continue to improve your strong areas and balance your weak area. Well, that brings me to the end of the session. I hope it was like super helpful for you. Be very mindful of these mistakes. For all those who've not yet started to prepare for NLSAT, guys, it's about time. And we also have a batch starting today. The first demo is free. You can find the link in the description box. So I look forward to seeing you in the session. Somebody had asked me about case studies. So I'll just quickly summarize it, put it in brief. So now part B has a case study and analytical essay. There are 5 case studies. Think of case studies as, so say for example, this was Harshav, right? So you're a, you have 2 more friends, A and B, and you know that the legal principle that you've been told, it says that if anyone has promised anyone anything, because of which A either does something or or the person refrains from doing something, the other party is bound to honor the terms. This is your legal principle. Now B promises A that listen, if you'll get me X number of chocolates from USA, I will pay you 5,000 rupees. Now A does it. A gets chocolates for B and now asks B to pay 5,000 rupees. B refuses to pay, saying that, listen, I was just joking. Wasn't serious. Now, Harshav, you are asked to decide that whether in this case B is bound to pay A or not. So this is in the simplest term what a case study is. You're given a legal principle, you're given a factual matrix. The complexity of this could vary depending upon what domain is. For example, if my memory serves well, it was in NLSAT 2025 that there was a question inspired by, and there are a lot of case studies inspired by real life cases as well. It was around application of GST. So they had given the legal principle, that given the factual matrix. I think it was popcorn and caramel popcorn, and how GST is to be applied separately uh, to both these forms. So in the simplest way, I've explained to you that this is what a case study is, and then you're asked to decide. Now you can choose sides, that whether you want to fight for A or for B. NLSAT 2026 again threw a curveball that they in two of the case studies they assigned a particular side. That listen, you have to argue it on behalf of A or you have to argue it on behalf of B. With case studies, focus on a lot of practice because it essentially tests how well can you understand a legal principle and apply it to a given factual matrix, and it also tests your ability to pick up what is important in terms of what are material facts. Not everything is to be answered, not everything is to be engaged with. So in my class, this is what I teach, that a good answer to a case study is, of course, starts off with your issue. Then your application has arguments, counter arguments, and rebuttals, and then your conclusion. So that essentially what makes a complete answer and a good answer to a case study. So I hope answers your question, and I hope, guys, it was a fun session. Please, the standard drill: like, subscribe, comment, share it with other of your friends if you find it useful. And yeah, I'll continue to bring up more such sessions. All the best, manifesting NLS, and looking forward to seeing you all at your dream law schools. Bye, guys.